The following is a not-for-profit fan-based adaptation. Fire Emblem, Fire Emblem Awakening, and all related terminology are owned by Nintendo and Intelligent Systems. This is a work of fanfiction and love. Please don't sue us.
Fire Emblem Awakening, Invisible Ties, Episode 3.
The creatures from the forest were everywhere, axes and blades bloody as they butchered their way through the Yllissian army. Snarling mouths emerged from under half-masks, ropes of drool hanging from their misaligned jaws as they worked their way through the helpless soldiers, who had been rendered almost catatonic with fear. There was no choice. They had to flee. Robin turned to sound the retreat when he saw a horde of giant, angry-looking wolves tearing into their back ranks, the archers and mages powerless against such creatures. Each wolf was easily the size of a horse, jaws tearing heads and limbs. Bodies flew through the air in showers of gore. The screaming became more than the tactician could bear. He looked around, desperately, trying to find Chrom or Lissa or anyone in the press of bodies, only to realize he was alone, separated from the other shepherds by the carnage wrought by the creatures. The wolves began bounding straight past him, ignoring the Yllissians. They skidded to a stop in front of the creatures and stooped low, allowing the monsters to mount them. The creature that had stomped on his chest in the forest, now sitting atop a wolf the size of a wyvern, glared at Robin, red eyes full of hate. Robin felt his breath catch in his lungs. With slow, deliberate movements, the creature began to undo the straps at the back of the mask, the wolf snarling and bounding forward. With little more than a twitch, the massive wolf had Robin pinned. The creature atop it grinned down at him, its misshapen lips the only visible portion of its face beneath the mask hanging off its head. The lips separated in a macabre smile, dead gums barely holding sharpened fangs in the jaw as the mouth descended for Robin's throat. He couldn't breathe.
Ah! Ah! Wolves! Monsters! Monsters riding wolves! Wait. Lissa, what the? Are you just about done?
I'm sorry. But you looked so peaceful in your sleep. And your nose! I couldn't help myself.
Robin relaxed, his hand dropping from his sword as Lissa laughed her way from the small room. He considered unsheathing the rapier anyway, but doubted that Chrom would look kindly on his tactician murdering the princess of the realm. So instead he set the sword down and set about preparing for the day. He grabbed his coat and made sure his spellbook was in its pouch.
She got you too, huh? At least there are no frogs this time.
Frogs? Really? Forget it. I really doubt I want to know.
Good call. Come on, breakfast is ready. Ah, good. Teach is starved.
Alright, I take it back. Frogs? Really? Frogs? What did she do with them? Do I want to know? I want to know, guys. Guys?
A few hours later, and the shepherds had embarked on their mission, taking a still frowning Robin along with them. The group had been kind enough to provide him with the things he'd need for the journey in a pack identical to the ones everyone else was carrying. The shepherds were following the north road out of Ylisse, the same one that Chrom, Lissa, and Frederick had led him along from Southtown the previous day. The scenery was idyllic, almost like an oil painting of some ancient garden. The fields were thick and lush. Small animals flitted to and fro in the grass, and the whole squad seemed to be in high spirits. The goofy smile hadn't left Chrom's face since they had left the city, though it also held a trace of patriotic pride as he surveyed his homeland. Sully and Frederick were scouting ahead, and Robin walked with Lissa, Sumia, and Chrom. Virion and Vaike were following them, bickering lightheartedly over tastes in wine, a lost cause when one was arguing with a person of the opinion, if it's alcoholic, I'll drink it. But Robin didn't want to spoil their fun. They were maybe an hour from the city when Robin heard shouting from behind them. The group stopped and turned. A green-armored knight was running towards them, leading his horse by the reins.
Wait! Wait for me! Why am I the last to learn about this mission? I ran all the way here!
Vaike was supposed to tell you last night.
Ah, Vaike, did you forget to tell Stahl when we were moving out?
The Vaike never forgets. I just don't always remember.
Chrom turned his attention back to Stahl.
Well, you're here now, and that's what matters. Mount up and go on ahead to find Frederick and Sully. They'd probably appreciate the extra set of eyes.
Yes, sir!
And Vaike, next time write it on your arm or something.
Sure thing, buddy.
Chrom,
Yes, Robin.
why didn't he just ride his horse here?
He's a little airheaded, but good with a sword. And quite the chef, too.
Well, it's nice to know I won't starve at least.
The morning had grown late by the time Frederick came galloping back down along the road in a great plume of dust. The others cursed, readying weapons and leaving Robin dumbstruck as to what was going on. He could guess from the simple fact that weapons were being drawn, but just to be on the safe side.
My lord, Risen blocked the path ahead.
Risen?
That's what we decided to call the creatures we fought in the forest during the council meeting. Probably the only thing everyone agreed on during the whole damned council, too. So, tactician, what's our plan of attack?
What are their numbers and troop disposition? What kind of soldiers are we looking at?
They were similar to the creatures we fought yesterday. Maybe 24, congregated mostly on the road. Light infantry. No heavy armor or archers that I could see.
Okay then, our group will come up along the road. You, Sully, and Stahl wait for us to engage off the side of the road, then hit them in a flanking maneuver. Don't let them tie you down, though. Stay mobile and keep up the pressure. If they're anything like what we fought yesterday, they won't even see it coming.
You heard him, Frederick. Go!
My lord.
Right, Chrom, you and Vaike are the first line. Virion and I will be the second. Your job is to keep them off of us. Sumia, your rear guard. You make sure if anything gets past us, they don't get to Lissa.
Very well, then.
Oh, yeah! Teach is itching for some action.
Sumia seemed nervous, a fact that did not escape Chrom's notice.
It'll be fine, Sumia. Just stay to the rear, and you'll be fine.
Right. Don't worry. I'll protect her.
Alright, what about me? Guys? Guys?
Okay, everybody form up and
Whoa,
get ready
wait a sec! Where's Teach's axe?
Vaike, now is not the time for jokes.
I'm not joking! I had it here a second ago!
Is he serious? He's actually serious.
Yes. How many times does this make it now? Dunno. I stopped counting.
Anyone got a spare?
I wondered what manner of ignoramus would mislay their weapon. Now I know.
Robin watched as a new woman wearing glasses, robes, and the wide-brimmed, pointed hat of an Yllissian mage strode toward the group and shoved the axe into Vaike's arms, frowning severely at him all the while. A look Robin wasn't afraid to admit would have given him chills if it were directed at him.
Next time I shall use a permanent affixation spell to bind it to your hands.
Miriel, I was wondering when you'd catch up.
Yeah, thanks, babe.
And if you call me that again, I shall use a permanent affixation spell on your mouth.
What? What's that?
Let it go, Teach. Good timing, though, Miriel. We were just about to engage the enemy.
Excellent! I have been looking forward to studying this new Risen threat.
Study them after we kill them. Mage, right?
I am.
Great, here. Fall in next to me.
Miriel nodded as they all settled into the formation Robin had decided on, the mage easily sliding into position beside Robin. Judging from the way she was keeping her distance from Virion, she too was familiar with the archer's chronic flirtatious behavior. Virion, not dissuaded in the least, still gave her a charming wink and a confident grin as the column started to move.
Risen this far along the North Road doesn't bode well. They've been sighted in the farmlands to the east as well, but there was supposed to be a group of soldiers patrolling this area.
Well, they probably just missed them. If it was a small group, then it wouldn't surprise me. We can at least make sure this group doesn't harm anyone. Chrom, you should probably watch where you're going. There's a rut there.
Yes, I see that now. Thank you.
It didn't take long for the shepherds to come across the Risen, passing where the knights were sitting in wait just behind some thick bushes. There were indeed about 24 of the monsters spread out across the wide road, just as Frederick had reported, all almost identical to the ones they had fought the other day. They were milling about uncertainly, though. Robin realized there wasn't one the size of the Risen that had stepped on him. At his sides, Virion knocked an arrow while Miriel produced an old and tattered spellbook from her robes.
Let's not waste time, shall we?
Indeed.
Agreed. Shepherds, charge!
All right, bring it!
The Risen spotted them immediately and seemed to instinctively move to meet this new threat. They moved slowly, though, compared to the creatures they had faced in the forest, as if they were melancholic or simply confused. Virion began firing arrows, and Robin sent a combination of fire anima spells he had been studying flying into their midst. A string of fireballs blossomed amongst the thickest concentration of Risen, launching leather-clad bodies through the air. Many simply dissipated into disquieting purple ash mid-flight.
Wow.
Very good form. If I may. Elwind!
With a flick of her wrist and a spinning motion from her hand, a miniature tornado sprung up amongst the Risen, throwing more than half of the remaining creatures from their feet. The ripping wind launched a few high into the air, and they came crashing down with sickening crunches before they dissipated into the now familiar ashes. Chrom and Vaike surged in amongst the creatures, making it impossible to cast larger spells without hitting them. Miriel switched to a sort of windblade spell, green light coalescing and splitting apart Risen wherever it hit in concentrated blasts of air. Robin fell back on the lightning spell that had served him well so far. The three knights came from the western side of the road at this point, Frederick leading from the center as Sully stabbed and swiped her lance on his left, Stahl gracefully spinning his long-bladed sword to his right. With the aid of the knights, the shepherds soon overpowered the Risen, leaving the road empty save the weapons the otherworldly creatures dropped and the piles of ashes being carried off on the wind. In the post-battle stillness, Robin approached Chrom, patting the dust off his coat. The prince was, fortunately, unharmed, as was almost everyone else, but Vaike was sitting impatiently on a rock next to the road, waiting while Lissa administered to a cut he'd taken across the chest.
Well, at least it was easier than last time.
It was. Maybe they're not as tough as we thought?
Or we were just awake this time.
Yes, there is that option too. I just hope the other scouting parties have as little trouble with them as we did.
That's smart!
Oh, don't be such a baby. I have to clean them before I can heal them, or it'll leave a scar. Hold still!
Hey, the Vaike could deal with some manly scars. Stop being so—
Okay, seriously, who goes into battle half naked?
Vaike has a peculiar sense of priorities. If you can convince him, by all means. It's not like we haven't tried.
Vaike began flexing his arm muscles when he realized that he had an audience,
That's right, enjoy the show!
prompting Robin to roll his eyes and turn away. Sumia and Miriel were crowding around the corpse of a Risen lying face down on the road that hadn't dissipated yet, Miriel crouching next to it while Sumia leaned on her lance, watching.
I admit, I am worried that we haven't come across the patrol yet.
I'm sure they're fine. They're knights, right? We should probably get moving again ourselves before—
Unhand me!
The fallen Risen she had been studying had grabbed hold of her ankle, a large, wicked-looking knife in its other hand as it pulled itself toward her. The mage fought back, kicking repeatedly at the creature's head with her free foot, but it wouldn't let go. Chrom and Robin both moved at the same time, drawing their swords and running over. Miriel shrieked again as she lost her balance and fell backwards, the Risen growling triumphantly as it dragged itself closer to the mage. Before Chrom and Robin could close the distance, Sumia snarled and lifted her lance, stabbing downward between the Risen's shoulder blades. The creature let out a final groan before dropping the knife, collapsing and dissipating like the rest had, much to Miriel's evident relief.
Am I the only one that thinks it's really creepy when they do that?
Are you all right, Miriel?
I was hoping to study it a while longer, but I suppose it cannot be helped.
Nah, she's fine.
That's good. So, not ready for the front line, Sumia? You seem to handle that pretty well.
Well, I mean, it's nothing. It's just, you know.
How far back down the road did we drop our packs anyway?
Not very. Look, they're right there.
Robin spun, eyeing the packs suspiciously. There they were, not 5 meters away, on the side of the road in a neat pile, even though Robin specifically remembered dropping them half a mile up the road.
I thought that since I wasn't necessary to the battle plan, I'd carry everyone's packs.
Ah! Kellam! Jeez, don't do that! And, sorry, I guess I forgot you were with us. Next time, just speak up and I'll make sure you're included.
I did.
Oh, do it louder next time?
It's okay, this happens all the time. Thanks, though. I'll shout and wave my arms to get your attention if I have to.
It only took another half hour for them to come across the scouting group that was supposed to be patrolling the North Road, and in an instant the good mood that had been present among the shepherds that morning vanished. 10 soldiers and their mounts lay dead where they had been felled, all bearing horrendous wounds. Pegasi had been shot from the sky by archers and set upon by the over-eager Risen. The ashes of fallen Risen pervaded the carnage as well, and Robin suddenly understood why the group they had fought had been so weak. Their leader had fallen fighting the patrol, and the remainder had indeed been leaderless, giving weight to his earlier theory. Stahl looked sick, Robin noticed, his face almost the same color as his armor. Sully was clenching her lance so hard her knuckles had turned white and her face twitched in a barely suppressed rage. Lissa gasped as the others gathered, and Vaike cursed. Chrom sighed as well, his posture speaking of a sense of helpless frustration.
It was a massacre. I think it would be best if the princess did not see this.
Of course, but we can't just leave them here. Gather the bodies off the road and prepare a pyre. It's the best we can do. We don't have time to dig graves for them, but I'll be damned if I leave the bodies here for the carrion.
The others, Robin included, wordlessly set about the grim task. The tactician watched from the corner of his eye as Chrom picked his way through the field, checking hopelessly for survivors with a silent and haunted-looking Lissa watching on at a distance.
What? Whoa! Whoa!
Chrom? What's...
Robin spun, his question coming up short. Chrom had actually found a survivor, but not a human one. One of the wounded Pegasi was rearing up, panicked, foam collecting at the corners of its mouth and eyes wide and wild. The prince was holding its reins, trying his best to calm the beast, but to little avail.
Whoa, girl! Whoa there!
Damn it, Chrom, be careful. If that thing kicks you...
Sumia beat him to the wounded Pegasus and deftly took the reins from Chrom, who stepped back a few paces. She locked eyes with the Pegasus.
Be careful! The beast is crazed!
It's okay. I can handle this. Shh. Easy, girl. It's okay now.
Despite Chrom's warnings, the Pegasus began to calm, tossing its mane about as Sumia stroked its neck. Robin exchanged surprised glances with the prince before giving a shrug.
Okay, I'm impressed. How did she do that?
I guess I just have a way with animals.
That's really incredible.
Chrom slowly came closer before patting the Pegasus's muzzle. With the excitement behind them, the shepherds continued the grim work of gathering up the bodies of the fallen soldiers as Lissa and Sumia cared for the Pegasus, and before long had a decent-sized pyre prepared. The shepherds assembled respectfully, the knights dismounting and Vaike being blessedly quiet for once as Chrom knelt down next to one of the fallen soldiers.
I wish we could care for them properly. This man, I knew him. He was one of Cullen's lieutenants. His name was Orson. He has, had a wife and child.
You said yourself that this is the best we can do for them right now. We've already lingered more than I would have liked.
Chrom sighed and nodded, rising and stepping back while Robin shook his head sadly. With a quick spell, Robin lit the pyre. The dried branches and wood the others had collected from the nearby forest caught instantly, and Miriel cast a quick second spell, ensuring that the wood would burn twice as long as normal. A few heads bowed in silent prayer, Frederick's among them, before Chrom called for them to move out again, turning and moving to where Sumia and Lissa were waiting with the Pegasus nearby. Lissa was sitting on the ground close by, eating some of the dried fruit they had packed. Apparently, healing magics were just as taxing as combat magic, Robin mused, close on Chrom's heels.
Alright, everyone. Make ready. Sumia, will the Pegasus be able to travel with us?
Not quite yet, but given a little more time, she'll be good as new, and she can carry the two of us to catch up. And I've decided I'm going to call her Paula. You like that, don't you, Paula?
We can make time to wait for you, then.
Actually...
It's okay, Captain. Every moment we linger puts Ylisse in further danger. Go on ahead. We can catch up.
Alright. But promise me you'll be careful. There's no telling how many Risen are lurking in the countryside.
As you command, sir.
Robin rolled his eyes behind Chrom's back, Lissa giggling as he did, before heading back to the others near the pyre. He wasn't quite sure, but he could have sworn he'd seen the Pegasus, Paula, rolling its eyes too.
Hopeless. 2 days and all I've seen from those two is them dancing around their mutual attraction. Well, I guess this is another thing I have no memories of my own of. Maybe I should be paying attention.
Despite Chrom's prediction of more Risen being in the area, the shepherds were unmolested by the time they reached the base of the mountains separating Regna Ferox and Ylisse. The road had narrowed and sloped upward for the last few hours, the air growing cooler and thinner as they traveled. As everyone's breath began misting in front of them and dark clouds above threatened snow halfway up the winding mountain path, Robin was suddenly glad he'd kept the coat. Cloaks quickly emerged from packs as the crew wrapped them around their shoulders.
Vaike, wear your cloak.
Ha! Teach don't need no stupid cloak to keep him warm. He burns so hot the snow melts before it gets at him.
Vaike, we do this every time. And every time, you get a cold. I need you to be combat ready. Put on the cloak.
Teach don't get sick!
It is true. I have heard that stupid people don't catch colds.
See? Thanks for the backup, Ruffles.
Case in point.
Vaike, will you just wear the cloak?
No, Teach has muscles the world needs to see.
Put on the cloak, or I institute a ban on all alcoholic drinks for the duration of our stay in Regna Ferox.
What?
Ha! Fine. If Teacher's awesome bod is making you self-conscious, all you had to do was say so.
Snow kept falling into the afternoon as they made their way up the mountain, before they came across possibly the largest building Robin had ever seen. Tall stone walls stretched off in both directions, disappearing into the horizon. The only way forward was through a heavy iron gate. Harsh-looking men with spears stood atop the wall, watching their progress. The sentries wore a mixture of mismatched leather and steel armor, but moved like men that were used to working together. As the shepherds drew nearer, one of the men on the wall retreated from sight, probably going to fetch the master of the keep.
That's a very big wall. Wow.
The Longford. It stretches from coast to coast, the remainder of a time when the Feroxi and Elysians weren't such close allies. We built it, but lost it to the Feroxi during the war. Even though that was hundreds of years ago, they still man it out of a sense of pride.
They'll let us pass, right?
As soon as I tell them who I am, we shouldn't have a problem.
Remember, my lord, we are representatives of Ylisse. Our actions reflect upon the Exalt and our country as a whole. Be patient and let diplomacy play out.
Yes, Frederick.
That goes for everyone. Be on your absolute best behavior.
Perhaps you should just remain silent, Vaike. Ugh, that is abhorrent.
My lord, I believe that the Feroxi guards are mobilizing.
What happened to diplomacy?
Robin had noticed, too. Men similar to the ones they had seen on their approach were atop the gate, readying lances, while behind the gate a startlingly large amount of soldiers seemed to be gathering with no discernible tactic in mind. They just crowded into the gatehouse, weapons held at the ready. The shepherds stood a few meters back from the towering gate as Chrom stepped forward.
I am Prince Chrom of Ylisse, and I seek an audience with the Khan of Regna Ferox. I respectfully request safe passage.
There was a flurry of activity atop the gate, before the soldiers Robin had seen earlier reappeared at the lip, poised to throw their spears at Chrom.
There was a flurry of action amongst the shepherds too, as the weapons were readied, Robin among them, drawing Chrom's rapier and holding it in a one-handed low guard, his other hand resting on his spellbook. The great iron gate drew upwards as a woman wearing the first full set of steel armor Robin had seen amongst the Feroxi stepped forward. Unlike the Elysian women Robin had seen, the Feroxi woman was plain, with short-shorn, straw-colored hair and harsh, angular features obviously born of a lifetime of hard weather and harder combat. Her armor was as worn as her face, bare metal plates over thick chainmail, a heavy lance held in her right hand balanced over her shoulder.
I'm Raimi, Wall Warden of Regna Ferox. I command the gate of the North Road. Turn back now, brigand, and I will not cause you harm.
Brigand! I'm the Prince of Ylisse! I've come seeking Regna Ferox's aid in a war against Plegia!
I see 4 Prince Chroms a week and you're not even the most convincing. Last chance, withdraw, or I will order my men to attack.
For the love of whatever god you worship, Chrom, fall back to our lines and we can rush the gatehouse if you really want. Just fall back, out of the archer's range.
How dare you! Prince Chrom is royalty! He is next in line for the throne of Ylisse, the next exalt! How dare you speak to my sworn lord in such a manner?
Sure, and I'm the Queen of Valm.
As she spoke, Raimi turned her back and waved her hand dismissively, which was obviously the signal the lancers atop the gate were waiting for as 4 spears were hurled at Chrom with frightening speed. Chrom reflexively bowed his head and closed his eyes. Vaike and Frederick charged ahead, weapons forgotten in an attempt to shield their prince from the lances. Miriel looked like she was trying to create a new spell on the spot to make the lances miss their intended target, flipping through her wind tome. Stahl looked on, horrified, while Sully roared defiance, throwing her own lance at Raimi's turned back. Virion knocked an arrow, intending to hit the Feroxi knight between her shoulder blades. Robin's heart fell as he rushed forward, unsure of what he would do. Robin looked up as a shadow flashed over them, a Pegasus swooping down from above. A woman in bronze-colored armor reached out and with what must have been extremely unpleasant force on her arm, yanked Chrom onto the beast as she passed. The lancers atop the gatehouse began hurling their weapons at the Pegasus, which was moving far too fast for them to hit. Frederick gracefully reined his mount to a stop while Vaike skidded to a halt, spinning to watch Sumia's progress. As Raimi turned to see what was causing the ruckus, Sully's lance grazed her arm while at the same time Virion's arrow buried itself in her thick shoulder armor.
Woo! Atta girl!
Sumia! Teach is impressed!
Impeccable timing.
Damn it, fine! We'll settle this the Feroxi way. If you can beat me, I will accept your story as truth. Come!
With a snarl on her face, the warden reached up and snapped the shaft of the arrow buried in her armor, tossing it aside. Robin decided to nip the problem in the bud and sent a wind spell at the furious woman's legs, throwing them out from under her as he ran. Before she could rise past her knees, Robin closed the distance and held his rapier pressed against her neck. The shepherds and Feroxi guard both simultaneously stopped and stared in shock.
What?
Stay down. The sword hurts a lot more than a little wind spell, that I promise you.
Chrom slipped from his undignified position across Sumia's lap and approached. The Feroxi guard looked on, confused, muttering amongst themselves and clearly trying to decide if they should or shouldn't rush to their leader's aid. Chrom drew falchion, stabbing it into the ground in front of Raimi, who still knelt motionless with Robin's sword at her throat.
I'll only say it one more time. I am Prince Chrom of Ylisse. The Divine Blade Falchion is my proof. Now you will allow my party safe passage to the Khan of Regna Ferox, or I'll kill you myself and find someone else who will.
Yes! Spoken just like a Feroxi. Your man here is wicked fast. That alone is proof of your claims. Only royalty could afford to employ such skilled fighters.
Robin withdrew the sword, still holding it at the ready as Raimi rose, rubbing the red line Robin had left on her neck and beckoning them to follow her.
Come, I'll take you to the Khans personally as a way of apology, my lord.
We would appreciate that. Thank you, Warden.
Wait, I'm employed? Does that mean you're gonna pay me?
Of course. Did you think you were a slave?
I don't know, Chrom. I woke up in a field, was practically kidnapped, forced into fight after fight, and have yet to be recompensed for my efforts.
Well, when you put it that way.
I'm just kidding. Wait, hold on. Where's Lissa?
Oh no, I forgot. I should probably go back and get her, shouldn't I? I had to let her off when we saw the Feroxy readying for battle. I'll be right back.
The squirt's gonna be pissed we left her behind, isn't she?
Yes, be ready for it. She'll be loud.